Hello, my name is Liza Thompson and I was the chair and author of SAR Eric, which is not his real name. This brief video will take you through some key areas of learning from the review and will include some reflective questions which you may wish to pause the video and consider. Eric was a white British male in his early 60s when he died by suicide in November 2021. At the time of his death, Eric was living in a care home in Town B, Norfolk. Eric had a long history of problematic alcohol use, self-harm and self-neglecting behaviours and suicide attempts. Eric's adult children told me when I spoke to them that Eric's poor self-care and self-harming behaviours started when he'd separated from their mother more than 20 years ago. Eric had been in a relationship with a woman who had also had alcohol and mental health issues, and when this relationship ended, Eric's behaviours further escalated. Eric lived independently in a bungalow in Town A until January 2021. During this time, he was a frequent attender at Hospital A due to self-harming, falls and poor physical health linked to alcohol use. During Eric's final admission to Hospital A in January 2021, he contracted COVID-19, which rendered him weak with poor mobility. Whilst he was an inpatient rehabilitating from COVID-19, his adult daughter raised a concern that he would be unable to care for himself back at his bungalow. Subsequently, Eric was deemed to lack capacity to decide where he should live, and a best interest decision was made. Eric was accommodated in a series of care homes and inpatient beds, and at the end of June 2021, he was accommodated at Care Home C, where he passed away. From January 2021, when Eric left his bungalow until his death, Eric constantly requested to return home. There were numerous mental capacity assessments, his capacity fluctuated, and it was considered that he would be unable to care for himself if he returned to independent living. The diagnosis of Korsakoff's dementia had been recorded on Eric's records. However, there is no evidence that this was ever officially diagnosed. The care homes identified for Eric were specifically intended for dementia patients, and Eric did not fit into this environment. They were not equipped to deal with his specific behaviours. Whilst at Care Home C, Eric refused to take medication for his mental health. The NSFT psychiatrist assessed that Eric's presentation was a protest regarding his desire to return home, and assessed that there was no requirement for mental health support. Eric attempted suicide in October 2021, and in November 2021, care home staff found him deceased, having taken his own life. You can read the full report on the Norfolk SAR website. However, I'm now going to take you through some very quick, reflective questions around some of the key themes that were identified. You may pause this video if you would like to take some time to think these through. So first of all is around using multi-agency meetings. Throughout the scoping period, there were many missed opportunities to organise a meeting between all of the professionals linked to Eric. On some occasions, the multi-agency meeting which did take place were not focused, they didn't have specific actions and reviews of decisions made. Practitioners across all services should be encouraged to coordinate and facilitate multi-agency meetings, and it should not be assumed that adult social care will lead on these. Questions to ask yourself are, do you feel confident in coordinating and facilitating multi-agency meetings? What do you need to help you to feel more confident when coordinating and facilitating a multi-agency meeting? And what do you think are the main elements of a successful multi-agency meeting? Another area to consider is around high-frequency hospital users. Eric appeared to use the emergency department of Hospital A in the place of primary care. Hospitals in Norfolk and Waveney operate high-frequency user meetings. However, all practitioners should be aware of the use of emergency and non-planned care in place of primary care. Questions to ask yourself are, have you ever supported an adult who has used emergency departments in place of primary care? Think about the reasons why they may have acted in this way. How can you, in your particular role, respond to either encourage GP practice engagement and attendance, or identify the underlying reasons for high frequency use of emergency departments? What projects or services do you know about which may reduce the underlying reasons for high frequency use of emergency departments? For example, projects which reduce loneliness. Finally, an area of learning to share is around the availability of suicide prevention training, which is commissioned by Norfolk County Council and it's available via Norfolk and Waveney Mind. Questions to ask yourself are, would suicide prevention training give you more confidence in your work? And do you know how to book onto suicide prevention training? Thank you for listening.